Hello, my name is Emma, and today we're going to be talking about an extremely exciting event that I went to. So a couple of weeks ago, I received an email in my inbox, and the subject said something along the lines of Miss Peregrine's movie advanced screening. From that, I can kind of understand where this email is going. My first thought of all is, how can I do this without Jessie? Which will be explained later. But of course, the second I got invited to see an advanced screening of the Miss Peregrine's movie, I was over the moon excited. If you didn't know, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, written by Ransom Riggs, just became adapted into a movie, and it's in theaters today, but I got to see it a few days early, and I'm here to talk about it. So the weeks of excitement roll around, and it is finally Monday, September 26th, and I am on my way into the city to see the movie. I was extremely lucky to attend these exciting festivities with two of my very, very good friends, Monica from She Might Be Monica, and actually Jesse from Jesse the Reader, who was already going to be in New York for the Bieber event that he was hosting. He was able to come to the screening too. So we met up in the morning. Obviously, me being me, got lost in the way. Been in New York City 20 years, still can't find my way around. Finally enter the screening room, and it is so fancy. And we got the most legit 3D glasses in the world. You know how when you go to a 3D movie, you get the ones that look like actual glasses that have like the rounded rims at the bottom? These were like square, looked like a virtual reality helmet. It was super cool, and I didn't even know we were seeing the movie in 3D, which just added on to it. So we see the movie. I don't want to say too much because I will have a full review on it, but I really enjoyed the movie. I read the book about 2 years ago, so it wasn't like my inaccuracy meter was going like off the charts while watching, so I was able to just appreciate it as the movie as its own. But I really enjoyed the movie and thought it was really well done. Although I don't remember so many tiny little details of it, I would say about the first 3/4 of it were very accurate, and the last quarter definitely had some changes, but totally worked with it. The casting was fabulous, and everyone looked so good and so accurate to the characters. The cinematography and the graphics and just everything, the aesthetic of the movie was perfect and so Miss Peregrine's. There was a really great balance of the lighthearted funness of the story, but they also kept in some of the dark elements, which was done very well. As a whole, I thought the movie was really great. For the most part, I think it's a lot better than a lot of YA adaptations we get there, and just kept the essence of Ransom Riggs' Miss Peregrine series, even if there were a few changes. The thing that I went into the movie most nervous about was the fact that Emma and Olive had switched powers, which is something that I know really affected fans when they first saw the trailer. I honestly had no qualms with this change. It didn't impact the story in any way. Emma and Olive were still Emma and Olive, and while it definitely is different, I don't think it took away from the story in any way, and I thought it just added to it, and it was really great. All in all, I really loved the movie. I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10 for just fun enjoyment as the movie itself, but probably a 6 out of 10 for accuracy. So it scored pretty well on both ends of the scale, in my opinion. I am totally going to see it multiple times now that it's out in theaters, and I can just take everyone I want to see it with me because I think it was just such a great movie, and I'm so happy with the way it turned out. And then we move on to an even more exciting part of the day, which I know sounds like a lot because I got to see a highly anticipated movie early, and I'm super thankful for that, and like that is enough to make it a perfect day. But something even more exciting happened. So another part of this whole junket was we got to do roundtable interviews with Ransom, with the costume designer Colleen Atwood, and a few members of the cast. First of all, let me just tell you, that table was not round, and I would be lying if I wasn't disappointed. But I got to be a part of this really awesome interviewing process, and while I couldn't actually film any of it for you, I'm just going to take this time to tell you a little bit of what we talked about and what the interviewees were saying. So roundtable interviews are a little bit different than what you normally see on BookTube or even on TV, where it's like one specific booktuber with one specific author, and then the booktuber is asking the author all these questions. Roundtable interviews are basically, you have the one person at the head of the table who is answering the questions that you're interviewing, and then there are a bunch of different people from different media outlets that ask questions like all at the same time. I thought it was going to be like how you see on TV, where like one person is standing in front of the room and then the rest of the people interviewing are just in the crowd like, Ransom, I have a question, Ransom, pick on me. Luckily, I was with a very respectful group and everyone got their questions in, and I'm really excited to tell you what we talked about. So the first person we were talking to was Ransom Riggs, obviously the author of the original work. I think one of the things that people would most like to know about Ransom in this whole process of taking something that you have created and you have written that is your baby and handing it off to somebody else. So Ransom's response was that he kind of removed himself as the author, and it was really easy for him to do that because Tim Burton is somebody he's looked up to for 20 plus years, and so he knew he was in good hands, which I think is really important going into that kind of process. Another thing that was talked about was the inspiration for the Miss Peregrine story, and so Ransom had talked about how he had always wanted to tell the story of somebody discovering this new world. So essentially, Ransom hit up this Dutch photographer that he had never met, and they went on this 4-day road trip across Luxembourg, I believe it was, and they found this house that was deemed the Miss Peregrine's house, and the story kind of came from there. One really, really interesting fact is the house that Ransom found and deemed this is the Miss Peregrine's house as he was writing is actually like 5 miles away from the house they used in the movie in Belgium, and I thought that was so cool. Full circle that the inspiration from your story is so close to where it is all these years later. I just thought that was so fascinating. One of the questions that I asked Ransom was if he had a cameo, what character would he choose or what scene would he want to be in, and his response was a skeleton. This is one of the very last climactic scenes of the movie, so I'm not going to spoil too much for you, but basically there are skeletons and they are alive, and Ransom wanted to be one of them. Out of every character and every person in the movie, he chose a skeleton. Another question I asked Ransom was if anything was very similar or even identical to the way that he imagined it when first writing the story. And he said that the first act, especially when Jacob was home with his grandfather in Florida, that whole scene was very, very accurate to the way that he first imagined it, which I thought was super, super cool and all you can really ask for as an author. Also, when Jacob is first exploring the peculiar home and the children aren't there because he's not in the loop yet, so he's just exploring this decrepit house that has been bombed and everything is ruined, which is a beautiful, beautiful scene, and I'm so glad that me and Ransom can agree on that. And so the final thing I want to talk about with Ransom is the last question he was asked, and it was about how the end of the movie kind of closes itself off and doesn't really allow for a sequel, though I disagree because I definitely think there could be a sequel from it, but definitely things are kind of closed up and there isn't like a ... at the end. And so one thing that Ransom said that I feel is very, very critical is that it's more important for a film to stand on its own rather than set up a sequel because it's never really guaranteed in the film industry, and I totally agree with that. I mean, like I said, I think the ending, while you can interpret it as the ending of the story, even though there are more books, I definitely think there's a way to lead into the sequel. Ultimately, Ransom seemed very, very pleased with the movie, as I think he should be because I thought it was really, really great. And so the next person you're talking to is Colleen Atwood. Now, I am not one to really pay attention to actors or producers or directors or costume designers, so I didn't realize we were interviewing the Colleen Atwood. I didn't realize it was going to be the Colleen Atwood who was designed for Alice in Wonderland and Edward Scissorhands and Silence of the Lambs and Sweeney Todd and just everything. Oh my gosh, she's so fabulous, and I was so excited that we got the chance to talk to her. One of the hot topics was something that I touched on and a few other media outlets touched on was the photographs in the novel. If you didn't know, the Miss Peregrine's novel is really known for its photographs. So you can flip through and you see there's like photographs everywhere, and they're of the characters in the book. So a lot of the questions were focused around, did you take any inspiration from the photographs, or what costumes were the most heavily influenced by the photographs, or my question was if it was harder to design for these characters knowing that there were already costumes in the books. So one of the things that Colleen said was when first looking at the photographs, she said, okay, this is this person in the book, now what am I going to design for the movie? And it didn't heavily impact her. She definitely kept them in consideration, but it wasn't like she was trying to create those exact photographs because that's not what the movie was, which meant in response to my question that it wasn't that hard for her because she was able to separate the two, which I think is really important when taking a book and making it into a movie. We talked a lot about Eva Green, aka Miss Peregrine's costume, because if you haven't seen, that thing is gorgeous. Colleen had said that she wanted to be something that very evidently showed that Miss Peregrine's power was that she could turn into a bird without saying, I'm a bird, which I thought was very well expressed. She knew that she didn't want the dress to be black, so she made it this beautiful navy blue gown with this coat and these buttons across it, and if you see, the shoulders are actually pointy rather than ruffled, and she said that was because Miss Peregrine is a pointy character. And inside of the ruffles there's like this box pleat, if you can see it in the movie, and it's green and it has this embroidered feather in it to reflect actual feathers, and it was just so intricate and really, really cool to talk about with the actual costume designer. One of the questions was what was the biggest struggle designing for these characters, and she said that it was working with kids. Now, I'm not a costume designer, but I worked in retail and I sold shoes for like 5 years, and so I can tell you that kids are the most difficult customers, so I can't even imagine trying to design an actual clothing costume for them. One of the biggest focuses of the costume department for this movie was comfort control, because with so many child actors, you want them to be comfortable because otherwise they're going to be complaining or whining, or they're going to say that this doesn't fit right when they really just don't want to wear it, which I think is totally understandable because the main cast is like 7 to like 21, and I mean, even at 20, like if I'm not comfortable in something, I'm not going to wear it. So I think that's definitely an interesting thing that they had to focus on that she specifically remembered. And so I actually got to ask her another question, and my question was, She's worked on so many different things. Her resume is so diverse, and what made designing for Miss Peregrine's different. And she said that the unique storytelling of it made it really, really interesting for her. One thing that I didn't even pick up on the movie that I think is super, super interesting knowing now is that a lot of Jake's costumes came from the difference between Jacob's youth and Abe's youth. So for example, she put Jake in a lot of 1950s inspired sweaters, and she also wanted the costumes to be timeless because there is that contrast of 1940s and 2015, and because they're moving in between those two times very frequently, she wanted the clothing to be timeless. So I thought that was really cool. I learned so much more about like the costume designing process for movies, and specifically for Miss Peregrine's, just from her talking about her experience designing. So it was really, really cool to listen to that. So the final group of people we got to talk to were 4 cast members. So we first talked to Asa Butterfield, who played Jake, Ella Purnell, who played Emma, Finlay Macmillan, who played Enoch, and Lauren McCrosty, who played Olive. So my first question to them was, if they were to switch peculiarities with any other cast member who played a character in the movie, who would they choose? So right off the bat, Finn was like, I am taking fire. Lauren had said she wanted invisibility, and Asa had said that he wanted the super strength, and Ella is just sitting there like, what did you guys leave me with? So Ella decided that she wanted the beast. One of the questions was, how was it like expressing and acting out these peculiarities when a lot of them weren't actually there? So we had kind of like a divide down the middle for this one, because Emma and Olive's powers are both very, very physical, with the air and the floating and the fire. And then we have Enoch and Jake, who Enoch just has to pretend he's bringing things back from the dead, and Asa just has to see things that nobody else can see, and he can't really see them either in real life. A lot of what they were doing was kind of just mentalizing and pretending that they were actually bringing things back to life, which is still very interesting. Ella had like a lot to do, because half the movie she's in a harness pretending to float and like has to move her body so she's not just like hanging like a rag doll. And she's also walking in these boots that are meant to be of lead but are only slightly weighted, so she had to like keep reminding herself to make it look like she was being weighed down, which was cool. What I found really funny about Lauren is she said that she wanted to do like method acting with fire and like actually play with fire to like get into the spirit of Olive, but they wouldn't let her do that. So it's just like kind of pretending that she was having all of this fire come from her. So that was a super, super interesting talk. So the last question that I had asked them, I feel is very applicable to all of you. So we had talked about how fans of books are super protective of their novels and they want them to be exactly the same, and what is it like joining into a movie that already has this huge existing fan base? And so we got the expected answers, like it's intense or it's scary, and they're very nervous about how it was going to be interpreted by fans. But Ella actually offered some really important advice that I think is super important for us to like keep aware of. So Ella had said that if they had all gone into the movie with the intention of making it as exact as they possibly could to Ransom's original design, it would kind of be like an insult to Ransom, because even then it still would not be exactly the way he had imagined it, and it would be wrong to kind of pass it off as that. Unfortunately, she ended with, we'll have ours and he'll have his, which I think is really, really important, because even though we as fans, we always want it to be as accurate as it could possibly be, it's never going to be exactly the same for the author, and they should be entitled to having their own entity of work that they created. So I think it's really important. It was a nice reminder to have that sort of distinction between the two. It was really, really awesome to speak to all of these different people that had all these different roles in creating this movie. I learned so much about the film industry. I learned so much about the film that I never would have had I not actually spoken to these people, and it was just super, super cool. Me, Monica, and Jesse are sitting there in the interview room and we're like, what are we doing here? We're not cool enough for this. It was just such an awesome event, and I am super, super thankful that I received this gracious, gracious invitation to it. I actually got a few items from it that I really want to show you guys, because it was really, really cool. The first being the Miss Peregrine's movie book, and so what I love about this right off the bat is the cover is actually the cover of Miss Peregrine's, but instead we have Emma on the cover, who's like recreating it like the actress Ella who's playing Emma. I thought that was a really, really cool kind of meshing of the two. So I don't know if I'm gonna do a good job at showing you guys. But basically, you can just flip through it, and there's like different little sketches of it, photos from filming and whatnot, and it was just really, really cool. I haven't fully looked through it yet, but I love movie books like this, and so I'm just so happy that I actually have like a physical one that I can sit and look through and just compare everything to the movie and learn even more about it. So thank you so much, Quirks Books, for supplying us with these, and everyone who went to the event that actually gave them out. It was just a super cool parting gift. So the next thing I have is super, super cool, and it's actually a little flash drive, and you see on it, it says Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and it has like the little poster on it. But what I love about this is it's kind of like behind the scenes work, and so they had mentioned that some of Colleen's sketches were on it, and a few other things that pertain to the movie. So we get like actual little files from this, and so I'm not entirely sure if I am allowed to publicly post these, but I will definitely let you know what I think of them. I haven't looked at it yet, but I just think it's really cool that they give out even more. You know, we have the movie, and then we have the interviews, and then we have the book, and now we have just extra little things, and I thought it was super, super cool. So the final thing that I'm super, super excited about is they give out lingerie macarons. And so it has this gorgeous Miss Peregrine themed box. So on the side you can see there's Jake and Emma, there's Miss Peregrine's home, and then there's actually Miss Peregrine's in her cage. Then on this side there are the birds and the loop clock. And here we aren't like other people, we are peculiar, another bird, and more Jake and Emma. And then on the side, it has Right on Time with Miss Peregrine on the side. And of course, the beautiful, beautiful Miss Peregrine's on the front with the birds coming out of her silhouette. And I'm just like so excited for these cookies. Here are the macaroons. I have not had any yet because I was waiting for the books to cram. But this is like the best parting gift you could give me. Like, I get a book, I get special goodies and a flash drive, and actual cookies. And I'm really, really excited to eat these. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little story time recap of an extremely exciting day. Thank you so, so much to everyone who was involved in creating this event. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to me talk about this super, super cool event. And I hope you all go out today and watch Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children because it is in theaters now and it is fabulous. So I hope you guys enjoy it. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!